Hello, I'm Toby. I work on the One Login program at the Government Digital Service. Reliability is quite high on our agenda. So, Canary deployments are when you use a blue-green deployment strategy and trigger a rollback when a new deployment causes errors and kills the canary. We are running microservices on AWS using serverless, and for a while I was on the team who provided the code pipeline. I'm going to talk about what we learned when we implemented the Canary deployments in our pipeline. For the back-end Lambda functions, implementing blue-green deployments was relatively simple. They supported weighted aliases out of the box, so we could just turn on Canary deployments. For the front end on ECS, it was more complicated. Unfortunately, at the time, the AWS way for ECS and CloudFormation was not great for our setup. So we decided not to use this approach and kept looking for a solution. Luckily, a blog posted by an architect at Disney described a better fit for us using a nested stack and a Lambda function. This was the approach we chose to use. So we developed the feature and then found a pilot team to try it out with, and we were ready to launch. And we just needed a final test in the build environment. Simple, right? Wrong. The 4XX alarms we had configured were tuned to the prod environment. And the ratio of spammy requests in build was much higher, and the deployment failed, and it rolled back in testing. So we had to go back to the drawing board. So in hindsight, we should have left the application teams to do the alarms. They understand their own systems and know how to validate their deployments and what to watch out for. We removed the false alarms and rolled out the pilot, and then teams across the program took it up, and things were good for a while. We had Canary deployments, but a team shipped some code that passed testing when we did an all-at-once deployment, but wasn't backwards compatible. So it rolled back in prod, and the Canary triggered. So that was a success, at least. We needed more testing, so we made a code build job to run integration tests while running 2 versions of the code. This time, setting up the integrated tests was left to the teams. We didn't want to slow down our path to production too much, so we ran the tests in parallel as quickly as possible and configured them to split the traffic 50-50 between blue and green to help find incompatible code. Another thing we needed to think about was the execution patterns for each microservice when we were configuring our deployment strategies. I think I've gotten slightly ahead of my slides, so I might give myself a couple of seconds just to let them catch up so the graphic makes sense. So some of our services were quite low demand and might not have traffic in a short deployment window. So we had to take account of that. Another thing our developers wanted was to be able to bypass the Canary deployments if they needed to. So we built a feature where if they commented their commit with a magic word in their commit message, then it would deploy in one go instead of using a blue-green strategy. We also needed to pause our pipeline if the Canary had triggered a rollback, as there could be several releases making their way through to production. And so we built a circuit breaker that would stop deployments until a fix was released, again, using a magic word to signify that it was fixed. The next piece of the puzzle for us is configuration. There's an AWS service called app-config that can do blue-green releases, but it's not very simple, as not all the config can be run in 2 states at once. So we need to think about that. We can add a bake-in time for speedy rollback. We are recruiting. There's a job posted on the conference job board, which we're recruiting for SREs. You can also search on that page for the Government Digital Service. And yeah, I'd like to thank the event and everyone who was running it for putting it on, and Avni Patel for blogging about the solution, and lots of people on my team for doing a lot of the work, especially Becca, Fran, James, Sandra, Patrick, Vam, Chris, and many others. So yeah, thanks everyone, and have a great rest of DevOps Days.
Thank you very much, Toby.